Hello,
Hello to
hello.
another.
New
Yeah,
week.
hello. Yep, a new episode, and welcome to another edition of GayBCD Pride Edition. And once again, we have a special guest. So say hello to Sulagna Pal.
Sulagna Chatterjee.
Oh my God, why did I say Pal? I have a friend called
Terrible, Sunetro.
yeah.
Terrible.
I have a friend called Sulagna Pal. That's right, Sulagna
There's
Chatterjee.
another Sulagna Chatterjee who's also an actor. So when I get
So
people confuse me for her half the time.
should I pronounce your name
Just
as
call me
Sulagna?
Sula.
And
Yeah,
do
just
you
call me Sula or
pronounce
Sulagna. Yes.
and do you so you pronounce your name as Sulagna, not Shulagna? Like not the
Yeah,
Bengali.
I mean nobody has called me Sulagna since I was in 6th grade and in Calcutta. So
Got it,
everybody
got
calls me
it.
Sulagna only. Yeah.
Where are
Yeah.
you right now mentally, Sunetro? Are you in 6th grade in Calcutta? Because then you
Uh,
can call us Shulogna.
I wasn't in 6th grade in Calcutta. I was in 6th grade in Ranchi. So
Nobody
yeah.
deserves to be in 6th grade in Calcutta.
Ah, well, nobody deserves to be 6th grade in Ranchi. Believe me. I
Nobody
would take
deserves to be in 6th grade.
guys,
Period.
guys,
Yeah.
nobody deserves to be.
Existential enough.
That's the mood I'm coming
Yeah.
with today.
Great.
Friday
And-
evening existentialism.
I'm actually, it is an existential thing because I know it's the weekend. I am so bored to not do anything again for 2 whole days. I'm just like, I already know that what the fuck before I
Oh my
I'll
God,
blink
so much time. So I will have so
I'll
much
blink
free
a couple
time.
of no,
Fuck
shut the
face.
fuck up. Shut the fuck up. I meant like I'll blink a few times and it's Monday morning and I'm like, ugh, what is this
Yeah,
like?
I have nothing to complain about. I have the best weekend planned ahead.
Which
Same
is
here.
actually even I don't know why I'm complaining. I might be getting vaccinated on Sunday. So
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
which means you'll be spending your Monday in like crazy fever
May
and like just
yeah, but
dying.
like just so hydrate yourself really well, and you
Yeah.
just will feel tired. Like
yeah, that's not an issue anyways.
I barely felt like a fever and headache and stuff. I just felt like tired. That's it.
But you can just
And
use an
everyone
excuse to get out of work.
Oh yeah, I did.
Same. Same.
But yeah, coming back to the point. So hi Farhad, hi Sulagna. And another exciting conversation that we're having during Pride Month. So why don't we first?
Do you want to take Sulagna
Why-
through our
No,
segments?
we've done
okay,
that.
Amazing.
We've done that. We do that before the recording starts.
Amazing.
And why don't you introduce yourself? First and foremost, I want to introduce you by introducing you as a creator and a screenwriter. So why don't you tell us more about what you do, who you are? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is weird, but okay. So my name is Sulagna. I have been writing for the past 3 years, out of which the past 1.5 years have been a lot of independent writing, which basically means I'm crying half the time, trying to write half the time, crying and writing half the time. So it's just a lot of crying, writing, trying to write, and just kind of implementing my gay agenda, basically, which is to create as many queer stories as possible. I mean, I actually hate the term queer stories. I just feel they're stories in general, but
Yeah.
when you have been deprived of them for all your life, so it's better to kind of reclaim your space. So in the past year, I have done this show for Dice Media called First Season 3, which was an Instagram-specific same-sex relationship story. It was more of a mini series actually, and it kind of garnered a lot of really good response. My second show, which is an upcoming anthology series called Feels Like Ishq, that should come out hopefully soon. I don't know when. I have been waiting for a year for it to come out, but yeah,
Feels
people
like
come out when they are
Sorry,
ready.
feels like
Ishq. Feels like Ishq.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an anthology series of about 7 stories, out of which one of them is mine, and it's KAF. So yeah. So as I said, that yes, it's supremely queer, my story. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
So I'm really
queer
excited
as
for
fuck.
that.
Okay.
Yes. So
Alright.
yeah, so other than that, I am currently like working on a couple of other things, and yeah, I'm doing another show right now which I can't really talk about because stuff.
Got it.
But yeah, I've been doing some interesting young adult stuff. But as I said, my agenda basically is to write as many inclusive stories as possible, because growing up, when you see yourself completely underrepresented is not even the word. Like when you have never
Don't even
seen
see yourself.
yourself.
Represented.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even if you have, you've just seen either completely butch lesbians or completely effeminate gay men. That's all that you've seen. So when you see that growing up, and if you have the opportunity to create content and create stories that can give hope
Yeah.
and can give some visibility to somebody out there who's like, hey, that's me. That's exactly what I want to do. So that's what I have been trying to do. And thankfully, I've been given the right kind of opportunities till now to tell those kind of stories.
Awesome.
Sweet.
That's
Sweet.
amazing. So,
Other than that, I'm crying on Twitter all the time. That's
And
okay.
do you do these on your own, or you usually are in a writer's room and stuff?
So first and the Feels Like Ish story both were independent, completely individual stories from
Yeah.
the screenplay and the dialogue level. For first, however, the story, the characters were kind of set, but my kick-ass creative director Ria, who is one of the most phenomenal people you can ever work with, and the entire team of Dice Media is actually very inclusive that way. They are really they understand what is required, what their target audience is, and how do you very nicely mold a kind of story which is wholesome, relatable, yet not shallow. So working with them on that was amazing. The same goes for Feels Like Ishq as well. Other than that, right now the story that I'm working on, I am working with two other writers, and it's a completely different kind of experience altogether. But you learn something from each other
Yeah.
constantly. Thankfully,
A
there have been
little
no ego
a
battles.
little before the pandemic, I only asked because I was working on a show for Netflix, and there was zero like queer characters in the show, and I genuinely felt like there was space for one queer character, because we were constantly wondering like, not because there needs to be a queer character, but I genuinely felt like his roommate, whoever the protagonist was, could
Hmm.
be queer. And it was excruciating in like with the other writers, because suddenly it became like a, Acha, she's a lesbian. We can have her this side shaved, her
Oh
hair.
my
Oh, she
god.
can be heavily tattooed. Oh, she can wear this. She can. And I was like, no, why does it have to be like, oh, there's
coded.
a
Why
lesbian
does
on the screen?
why does
Like,
it have
I
to be
don't
a
want that. It
Most of
can
the
just be.
times when cishet people most of the time when cishet people are trying to create queer characters, it just feels like they have never met a queer person in their entire life.
and
Oh
that's
my
what
god.
it's
Like,
based on very like it's like based on stickers. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
stickers.
exactly.
Yeah. It
So
has to be
yeah.
visually visible
Like
that this
Yeah.
checkbox
person
tick
is
karo.
queer.
Yeah, it's
Tattoo,
Yeah.
this,
yeah.
that, वैसा, huh?
In fact, in my drafts, I wrote her into the show, and at no point does she even say she's a lesbian. She just happens to mention her breakup with a girl in the past.
Yeah.
She doesn't
Exactly.
mention at anywhere, oh, I'm a lesbian, and there's a
Yeah.
coming out scene or anything. But God, I went crazy with those writers, just like, dude, you think her hair should be colored blue? And I'm like, why?
Oh my
Like,
god.
why?
People see blue as the warmest color once and then they're like, bro,
Yeah.
this is lesbian. This is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, speaking of representation, I want to talk about in our first segment, which is TikTok. I want to talk about this amazing. I don't know whether you guys heard about this. There's this new Google feature
Yeah.
where
Yeah. Yeah.
if you write very heteronormative terms for certain professions like a policeman or a
Policeman.
delivery
Yeah.
man,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's actually going to prompt you to kind of create to change it to a gender agnostic version, let's say a police officer or a delivery person or stuff like that. I think Sulagna and I were chatting about this. I think this is such a, I mean, a lot of this learning is ingrained, right? Like it's coded within us right from childhood, and it starts with lingo. And I think if we can change that in little bits and ways, I think that's a fantastic step. I know
Yeah.
it seems like a small step, but it's
Completely.
actually, I think it's one of those little dominoes that can make a massive change. It's beautiful, right?
No, even I'm
For
learning
sure.
on Clubhouse in real time, because I host all these queer rooms there, and so many times I'm like, okay, I need to check everyone's pronouns, because especially again, it's kind of easy to get the he she and all of that, but they them is the tricky one,
Yeah.
because suddenly you don't want to, like, while someone is saying the story and you want to add to that person's story, you don't want to, like, again, miss sorry,
Genders
what's the
and
word? Miss
Misgender.
misgender them and in any way, and it's a learning. I'm learning to do it quicker and quicker the more I use Clubhouse actually.
No, and there have been a couple of times when our listeners, when they respond, and I have this habit of saying okay senor to, like, to men, and I've stopped doing that and I've started saying bud, like okay bud, because that's gender agnostic, because senor can be triggering for someone who's, let's say, not saying anything about their, and also I don't end up
Senior is a bit of a stretch. Like, I know we usually say guys,
senior
guys,
is a,
let's
no, but senior is a man, right? Like, it is a man. Like, you can't,
of course,
you can't refer to someone who does not identify as male with senior. It can be, it's not. So that's what I've been trying to pare back on that, and like little things,
mine is guys. I just so many times I'm like, hey, I'm in this room, guys, and then I'm like, wait, why do you say guys? I've become a little aware of it the more I use Clubhouse. But
so
I have a little piece of news that I came across which was very cute. I read somewhere that as of last week, a lot of German pastors who officiate same-sex marriages will live stream them.
Oh,
I thought that was a very
wow.
I thought that was very cute. So, so basically, I read that German pastors who officiate same-sex weddings will also live stream them as of last week.
That's
so I
cute.
thought
that is so cool.
That's cute. Like, there's a portal dedicated to just watching
like queer weddings.
Especially when Germany does it.
That's amazing. I mean, it's nice to hear these things in this garbage fire, dumpster fire of a year, to know the things. There are some things that are positive. So cheers to that.
Yeah.
So on that note, we'll move on.
I think the conversations that, conversations that, spaces like, say, Clubhouse or even Twitter for that matter, have initiated, and especially the fact that the younger lot of people, like, even though I'm 25, I call these 16, 17-year-olds younger people now, but the amount of knowledge that these people today have about everything, it's amazing. It's almost I look up to them at times, that the kind of nuance that they have in terms of conversations, and how open they are to actually learning, unlearning, relearning. That's actually fantastic.
Commendable.
Which actually gets more difficult for us as we grow older, because the conditioning gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
True. So so we'll hop on to our next segment, and we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, so moving on to our next segment, which is Big Talk. We have Sulagna here as our special guest. And what are we talking about today? We are talking about, and very fitting because you're part of pop culture, you're a creator. We're talking about queerness and the queer community, and how representation matters in so many different ways in pop culture. So getting right into it, what are your thoughts about India and representation? And let's unload.
Well. How much time do we have?
We have all evening.
So I feel, ever since, say, Fire came out, which was quite a magnificent film altogether. But for the longest time, I feel that, stories about sexuality or stories about... I hate the term alternate sexuality, which a lot of producers, a lot of content studios kind of use. I'm like, what do you mean alternate sexuality? What does
it's like alternate indie rock.
It's like
parallel universe type ka
alternate logo. Alternate logo de de, alternate sexuality bhi le le. Like,
exactly. So for the longest time, stories about sexuality or stories about anything that's apparently not conventional has been considered to be art film and not for the masses, and not, it's supposed to be stuff that goes to film festivals, does that entire journey, is talked about in those niche parties about, oh my God, have you seen that film? It's so amazing.
Hmm.
But it's apparently supposed to be films and content that the masses cannot enjoy because अरे नहीं यार उनको थोड़ी ना समझेगा हमारे देश की आबादी इतनी ज्यादा है नहीं लोग तो अभी भी ऐसे नहीं मानेंगे type का thing. But I think over the past few years, especially I think ever since 2018, since Section 377 was scrapped, there has been this sudden
And OTT
increase.
platforms in
Yes,
general.
And
I
OTT
agree. I
platforms, obviously.
completely agree.
Yeah.
So ever since that's happened, there's been a sudden spurt, in the kind of content that we see, which try to be inclusive, is what I say. I'm not sure how inclusive they actually end up being, but at least that effort is there. Like you actually see, like even in my anthology, which comes out, one of the stories is queer, is a queer love story altogether. Even otherwise, also even in Ajib Dastans, the one that Neeraj Khaiwan directed was a queer story. So at least out of 10 stories, there will be one story which is probably non-heterosexual altogether. But I think there is still a huge gap to be filled because somewhere, because the conversation has only just begun. Even I am conflicted at times that should we give the creators the benefit of the doubt that at least they are trying, or should we give them the same amount of standard that we give to normal coherent stories about anything in the world? Why does it have to be that stories about representation can be completely sloppy screenplay, horribly directed content, right?
You
Because that's
hit the
what I
nail.
have been seeing.
You hit the nail on the head with that because I've also reached this point where maybe I don't like something, but I'm glad. Like
At least.
Mangal Zyada Saavdhan is a good example of that. I couldn't stand that movie, but I
Oh,
really
God.
applaud.
I actually I
but if
actually liked the film because and for probably the same reasons that you disliked it, I felt like this is maybe the way it was the queer sort of narrative packaged in a way that was maybe palatable for the masses, and there was it wasn't
the part
offensive.
I celebrate, where I'm like, okay, this will cause conversations, open dialogues. So I'm okay with that. Like again, I'm not going to sit and trash the movie for it being a technically or a horribly bad film. If like again, it's a conversation starter in a city where I don't live, you know what I mean? So like,
but also I mean also we need to be cognizant of multiple realities in our country. Like we live in a very small, like very exclusive urban bubble, and to see how things work in, let's say, a Muzaffarpur or a little town like whatever, like these small towns, you can't go heave ho gung ho about with a story about, and I'm not saying you can't, but just that it might be really out of touch for the audience when you show, let's say, a queer couple in Bombay living together, working, someone in one of them in advertising, one of them is a doctor, or one of them is a lawyer. That's just really that can be very, ये तो शहर में होता है, this is not our thing, that's very often that's one of the things that writers have to contend with, saying मेरा audience कौन है, and will they even feel that this is believable, will they see themselves in them, and I don't envy them, I don't envy their position in respect.
I think the main factor to consider when you are creating universes that have queer characters in them is to kind of really focus on the characters first, because the emotions that a character feels is universal. Like the struggles that they feel, the longing that they feel, the feeling of not belonging that they feel, the want to belong, the feeling of being unseen, all of those emotions, doesn't matter if you're in Bombay, if you're in Muzaffarpur, if you're in Nagpur, wherever you are. Obviously there are a lot of different factors that come into play after that, like the concept of privilege in itself. Like whenever you look at a Bombay queer circle, navigating that is a different kind of difficult because it's incestuous as hell half the time. And whereas a friend of mine from Indore legit said that, dude, हमारे शहर में 6 lesbians है, I guess, और सबने सबको date कर लिया होगा. So the life over there is very different altogether. But so as a writer, it's completely true what you said, that you have to decide who your audience is. But sadly, most of the times, us as writers technically don't really have much of a say in who the audience is. It is usually the platforms who kind of are like, okay, this is where our audience is. It's more like a flavor of the season kind of a situation most of the time, that okay, right now the heartland stories are selling, so let's create a story that's set in say Bareilly, and इस character को ना ये बना देते हैं, क्योंकि
Which is
why
again
not?
going to bludgeon creativity in so many
Exactly.
ways. Because
Yeah.
That's
sometimes,
what.
if you see the best kind of representation, and I'm talking about Bollywood, right? Like, it's if a story transcends this whole idea of who is our target audience and who is this character, but if the story itself is so, like Aligarh, I can't think of a better
Exactly.
example than Aligarh. I think every time I think of Aligarh, I think it's that one film that if anyone asks me, where have you seen like a good LGBTQ film, like I think of Aligarh, even though it's a very dour and like dank
Completely.
movie, but the story is just so, it just is so. And even I don't have to relate to the protagonist because I've
Yeah.
not been in that situation, but
But
the
you still
amount I
feel for
feel,
them.
I feel
Yeah.
so much to them. So I feel like that this is going to be become another business where you're constantly going to based on eyeballs and clicks. And because I remember again, while before we were working on Netflix, like there are like insights that you get on what kind of things people skip on and what kind of things, and based on that you're supposed to write. And I'm like, how do you say a good story? Like, how do you do justice to a
Based on
story if you're
just
already going to
this
tweak it
algorithm
based
all
on
the time?
numerical insights? Yeah,
like you have to
it's
have
quite
heart.
irritating.
And another thing that really bothers me is, and this is how I judge whether a queer any example of queer representation has been done well or not, if that character's existence matters in the flow of the narrative.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then fuck that. You're just trying to kind of get in eyeballs by saying this token representation.
Which is why I always Kapoor and Sons, right? Like I feel it's the only time where Karan Johar managed to kind of add some delicateness to
Absolutely.
a queer character.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I feel like he's always done a disservice.
Yeah.
Shouldn't say that, he's on Clubhouse now, but I just felt like it was the only time I felt like, oh, it was needed. It was a part of the story. It was handled delicately. There were like great moments related to that character.
But I am slightly conflicted about that thought. Like, I agree to it as well, and I slightly disagree to it as well, because I was recently writing this serial killer drama, okay, because I adore dark stuff like crazy. So it's about this female investigator who a female psychologist who's kind of going through shit and realizing, unraveling madness. And when I was writing the concept note, and I was just like, yeah, so she lives in with her partner Nafisa, who is a lawyer. And a lot of people are like, अरे but खामखा क्यों lesbian बना रही है उसको, इसका story के साथ क्या लेना देना है? And I'm like, अगर लड़का भी हुआ तो उसका story के साथ क्या लेना
देना है?
Right. So
people mistake this idea of the person mattering to the story with their sexuality mattering to the story.
Exactly.
I feel the sexuality shouldn't matter to the story. I feel that it should just be. And I think the person should matter to the story.
Exactly.
And they just should happen to be queer.
Completely. That's so articulate.
Yeah. I want to ask Sulagna, what are some examples you think where representation was done right, especially in Bollywood?
I think Made in Heaven almost got it right.
Almost. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked Arjun Mathur's character altogether. Yeah. Even though I haven't seen Bombay Begums, but I have heard that the queer representation there was also done in a pretty sensitive manner altogether. But I mean, when I think about almost an 8 on 10 or a 7 on 10 representation, I can just think of Made in Heaven actually.
Have you guys seen this film called Dear Dad?
With Arvind Swamy.
Arvind Swamy.
Yeah.
Oh my good Lord God.
Can I tell you something random? My mom recommended that movie to me. I totally missed it.
I watched it around 10 days ago or something like that. By the way, I had no idea about the plot of the film, and I just wanted to watch something that has like this child and father. I mean, spoiler alert. He's a dad who comes out to his son, It's
Wow.
so sensitively
Yeah,
done,
yeah.
and the performance, and I was so stunned. And how is it not being talked
You know,
about?
this movie missed everyone's radar. And the funny thing is, my mom happened to see it on one of these. I put everything on her phone, like Amazon, Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
Now
know how
she's
she ruined it? She's like, Ari, I saw Bo Majenu picture that day. It was so nice. And I was like, dear, she said, dear dad. I was like, what's it about? Ari, that bap homo hai. Doesn't matter. So even she found a problematic way to get me to watch a movie that I totally missed. It was kind of cute. Yeah.
oh my god. Okay, so talking about problematic portrayals. I have a I want to unwrap what is the deal with Madhur Bhandarkar. Like, I have a feeling that he has a bone to pick with the community,
Yeah.
and that's why his portrayals are so
I'll tell you why what happens. I'll tell you what happens. Madhur Bhandarkar has a format, okay, which is take an industry. It's a fashion industry and corporate world and film industry. Each of his movies is about a certain sect of society, right?
Yeah.
And basically, it's about the perils of that sect of that society. So naturally, he tends to kind of exaggerate every character in an effort to make them negative or gray in some way. So usually, if you see fashion and all the homos are hissy queens, like hey, what is that?
Yeah, like
his standard dialogue.
It's actually funny. I was actually watching. I was actually watching Fashion last week to trash watch it almost.
I love that movie.
I love that movie. It's
it
so
is,
bad.
Oh my god! Yeah, exactly.
Especially Kangna Ranaut's character. I don't think she was acting. She was not acting. That's her. That's her.
But Sameer Soni's tangent in that movie is kind of done a little, thoda.
I'll give him
closeted.
But
his
talk
mom
about
is
page
kind of
3.
pressuring him.
But talk about page 3. I think just handling the queer community with the subtlety of a jackhammer. Like it's just so painful to watch, and I don't know what he has against the community. It's like, chalo dikhate hain aur thoda negative.
Because you said page 3, which had Rehan Engineer in it, opposite who I might have been on a date with once. But Rehan, before that, had done this film called Everybody Says I'm Fine.
Love that film.
I love that movie. And that also, again, even that had a
not with touching, him, but like
it had
the
a
daughter.
very touching, it had a
Pooja
very
Bhatt's daughter, right?
few touching queer moments in it. Apart from the fact that it immediately was followed by Darude's sandstorm in the film, it was a very sweet scene. But that was a great movie. That was a great movie. Sorry, but we were talking about representation in general, like the bad representation. I just feel like every Karan Johar movie before Kapoor and Sons, and maybe even after, I've not seen anything after, but I felt like before that, I used to just feel livid, including whether it was Dostana, whether it was Rishi Kapoor, who was obnoxious in Student of the Year. First of all, I don't know why. I think my girlfriend then wanted to watch it, so I attempted to watch it, and I was just shocked that this is how, like, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? If like a asshole, like a pro, like, this Aghinotri guy, that director who's very like vocally right-wing on Twitter and stuff, if he made shit like this, it makes sense, but why is Karan Johar doing this repeatedly? But fuck no.
Another thing I find really sad about representation, it's not necessarily bad representation, but what I feel really sad about, and which I'm trying to kind of, at least through my work, try and do jitna bhi mere capability mein hai, ki whatever queer stories that we see, okay, the mainstream ones almost of sorts, fantastic films, but they are all about the struggles and the sadness of being queer. I'm like, where is our wholesome stuff? Why don't we deserve supremely? We deserve our Schitt's Creek. We deserve supremely sappy. He stops her. I mean, he stops him or she stops her at the airport, and then they cry and then they kiss at the airport kind of films as well. Because I mean, I remember watching Happiest Season with my girlfriend in March, and we were just bawling. We were both just like crying. And that's what I realized that we lack here. Because, when I wrote first as well, so when I wrote first, a lot of people were like, oh my God, this is exactly the kind of stuff my girlfriend and I have been through. And I'm like, okay, no, this feels right somehow.
But
So yeah,
you said something which was you are trying to bring that change about through your writing, right? And because I totally relate to that, but do you sometimes feel immense pressure as a writer that because these are, because I have been there, I in
yeah,
my head, I want okay, I'm 35 now, so I don't know how late it is, but sometimes I felt like I still feel like I'm an aspiring screenwriter in a lot of ways, and I have felt that, what, I want to write that seminal, that one Indian horror film which still doesn't exist, that one Indian sci-fi film that still doesn't exist, that one, and obviously that one Indian LGBTQ film, which
yeah,
really like sticks out, it sticks out like by like jarring stick out,
totally.
not even like, oh acha, this was a little like that. I
Huh.
don't even want that. I want, but dude,
Hi.
I suffer
It's
from such
crazy
immense,
pressure.
yeah, I put so much pressure on myself because
So
Hmm.
of
I'll
that.
give you an example. Like last year, when so July, like I started independently writing in March
Hmm.
2020, and no, January 2020, and March COVID happened, and I was like, oh shit, all my plans of oh bhai abhi to se cool
Hmm.
independent cheeze karenge sab bhaad mein chala gaya.
Hmm.
Then July finally I got first, and
Hmm.
August I got the Netflix wala project.
Hmm. Hmm.
So in a span of a month, I suddenly had two queer stories I was writing
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
by
Hmm.
myself.
Hmm.
Till before that, I constantly used to crib about, oh my God, queer people should be allowed to write queer people stories. Why are cishet people writing our
Hmm.
stories? Now that I had two projects which were very close to my heart, मेरी फटी पड़ी थी.
Hmm.
मतलब I have legit had panic attacks.
Hmm.
I have called up my friends and my mentors and be like, listen, I don't think I can do this because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I am a cis woman. My coming out was very privileged. I've never had to really face any issues. Am I even capable of writing a good story? What if I unintentionally somehow, reinforce something which kind of against stereotypes the
Hmm.
community?
Hmm.
What? So the pressure is huge. And then somebody told me that, bro, the amount of pressure you're taking upon yourself, उसका अगर आधा भी pressure cishet people who think they are so capable of writing
Hmm.
queer stories
Yeah.
लेते ना,
Yeah.
so our stories would have been much better. So the
I
fact that you are
agree.
thinking about it in
Hmm.
itself means
Is
you're
enough.
capable of
which
writing.
Yeah.
which collectively over time, if multiple writers start feeling
Yeah,
this, it pushes the envelope in a way, I
exactly.
guess.
No,
Yeah.
But
so
I think what's important is that we slowly now start looking beyond. Like, I know, again, it's a start, but we should start now looking beyond just gay stories and lesbian stories.
Hmm.
I
It's
agree.
time for us to tackle asexuality for that matter.
Hmm.
We need to
Hmm.
obviously tackle trans stories in a much better way. Like,
Hmm.
we
Doesn't exist.
cis people cannot, they should not be allowed to write
Yeah.
stories about
Hmm.
trans people for sure, because the kind of sensitivity that it'll take, you
Yeah.
cannot, like, that's a kind of lived experience you cannot gain from, like, that's a kind of experience you cannot have without actually
Hmm.
having lived
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And this is exactly one of the big issues that I face. I work in advertising, and like all of us on the screen, we've all wanted to kind of we all have a queer agenda, and every single time out of like in my entire career, I would say only 5% of my queer pitches have gone through, and the two times that they have gone through, once it went through because the client wanted to make a difference, and the second time it went through, and it wasn't because the client wanted to kind of suppress it. It was because the story was not centered around the queerness being
Hmm.
a sort of punchline. It was us representing a trans model. It was a beauty ad, and we sort of were the first beauty ad that that had a trans model up front and center.
Wow.
But we didn't make a big deal of it. I mean, there was a larger narrative of
Hmm.
power, but it wasn't about us saying, "Oh, dekho, humne trans model ko cast kiya hai." It was just the way she identifies as a woman, and she was a model in the film, and that's what it was. And the rest of the times, it's been such a struggle because I think there is just a pure lack of effort to come to a point of empathy, to come to a point of understanding that, okay, let me figure whether this might make sense. And this whole thinking that this is actually very niche. Fuck niche. You know how many people would want to watch this? Like, hello, have you done any study? No.
Sometimes,
Exactly.
and that's the thing. It's advertising actually more than cinema. I sometimes feel like advertising has made a few attempts to kind of this, and advertising is where real conditioning happens, right? Because
I
today, if
agree.
you understand how you feel so fuck all about your body, it's because of advertising.
Completely.
And then if advertising is supposed to bring out a positive change, we are very far from it. But I do remember even before, like lately, I've started seeing all the same sex kind of narrative being done in advertisements. But I feel for the longest time, like with trans issues, it's been around for a while. I remember seeing a lot of commercials years ago where it was in the fore, and that kind of sensitivity was kind of, but then again it was just a 30-second
there was
ad.
this really beautiful ad that was recently doing the rounds, right? Some jewelry.
Yes,
company
we've
one
spoken
that,
about
this.
that was so gorgeous.
That was lovely. There was ages back, I think 2 years back, one of the most beautiful ads was about I think it was Zandu Balm. I mean Jandu Balm, like I'm calling it Zandu, but it was about an act like a real trans woman who adopted a girl, and it just
it was
chokes
Vicks,
me.
I think so.
It was Vicks or Jhandu, any one of those. Vicks, yeah. And the narrative was so beautifully woven into the idea of care and touch and the idea, the motherhood. And it was such a sensitive narrative that motherhood is like it's like water. It doesn't have a color. It doesn't have an identity. You make it your own. And I think that's what we need. That's what we require. Now I will tell you the challenge that comes in. Those are event films. Those come once in a blue moon because the client has money to pour on a 1 minute or a 2
award
minute
season.
Award season.
Yeah.
But the real change comes in when वो 20 सेकंड के ad में जो मतलब टीवी पे चलेगा हर पूरे साल के लिए, उसमें there is queer representation and there is zilch. There is zilch right now.
Exactly. And for me, I know it's a part. If my mom, again, like dear dad, if my mom sends me an ad, sometimes like I saw a beautiful ad during this pandemic about how transgender people are affected by it was an ad, I don't know, it was like a web ad, it wasn't even on TV and stuff, but somehow my mom saw it on Facebook and she sent it to me, and I happened to find it because of my mom. I was like, okay, you know what, it's working somewhere where my mom, because right now she's at that point where, okay, my son might be gay and stuff, but I still won't talk about it to him. But I saw something that's gay, so let me share it with my son. Like she's that's her level of acceptance right now. So sometimes I feel like, okay, if my mom's seen it and she thought she should share it with me, it's worked somewhere, and it might work for someone else somewhere.
One thing I want to ask both of you, starting with Sulagna, is what lessons do you take as a creator from the West in terms of how to tackle queer representation as per the media that you're working with, or just in terms of how narratives are woven? What do you like sort of imbibing and inculcating from the West? Because I mean, a large part of our references are West based. So
yeah, completely. I think the one word that inspires me is the simplicity in the way that things are tackled there. Like when you see sex education, right? But in such a simple, non-preachy, non-patronizing, yet relatable manner. So it kind of just shows that you don't have to make an entire shosha of things to kind of try and be inclusive. It doesn't need to be a high concept, like a story about, how do I say this? A story about inclusivity doesn't need to be a story just about sexuality, if that makes any sense. Like
it does.
Yeah. So I mean, a very coherent story which deals with a character which is queer in this with the same nuance that it would with a heterosexual character.
Yeah.
Schitt's
I
Creek.
think Schitt's Creek,
Yeah.
literally.
Like him
David
being
is screwed
queer.
up in his own
Yeah.
ways. Exactly.
And
And he's wholesome as hell.
Yeah, and his queerness barely matters to the story.
Exactly.
It's not even a.
It's not
at
even a
no
narrative point.
And I love that it wasn't a conversation even with the parents. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Exactly.
it did not. It was just oh, now he's dating a guy. Or now
Yeah.
he's dating a
Yeah.
girl. You know,
Yeah.
oh, he's sleeping with
Even the
Stevie.
conversation that Patrick has
Forget
with his
about-
parents.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was wholesome.
You know, one is the parents. I mean, you would think the parents are, you know, they came from like this Shusha city, but the town itself
Exactly.
doesn't care.
Which is
And
right.
that's
See,
what I
if you
love
think-
about Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek is actually in a one line. It's a random concept,
It's
right?
a-
The
it's-
idea
Yeah.
is a family that suddenly goes super broke, and then it's a character driven show. But
Completely.
coming back to Shretra's question, for me, I feel like the tides are changing now. I feel like content has become superior in a lot of ways, and I kind of try to focus on the story itself so much that I don't even want to spend time trying to deconstruct, oh, this is a character and what are their struggles. I do that, obviously. I do that on you have to, on a lot of levels. But I can't somehow, oh, because of this person's gayness, these are their issues. I am myself fed up of like seeing that. And I myself can't get myself to think of that even like when I'm writing anything, because why does this person's, and as our collective experience, I feel like we all are headed with the same problems. I listen to, we've done these straight hookup apps and dating app conversations and all, and what issues do they not have that we gay people have? Everybody has the same fucking issues. Now we are on the same page. Can we, and over and above, can it be without issues overall?
Yeah, that's what, like,
Yeah.
can we see some happy stories? And you know, my issue, and I spoke about this prior, you know, a little while ago. Why do we need to code queer characters? Like, can you, like, why? Because what your writing is so poor that you are scared that your writing won't be evident from your writing. Like, you're such a bad writer that you have to put it on their clothes, like literally. Come on, why do you need to code lesbian matlab, like you were saying, butch, gay matlab effeminate? Are you fucking kidding me? Come on, it's 2021. A pandemic has turned the world over. So let's think thoda different.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
but yeah, please continue.
No, there was a little, or even sometimes it's, even if it's the obvious, right? The issues of being gay and all, it's kind of, was it last Christmas? The Dan Levy and Kristen Stewart movie, Holiday.
Happiest season.
Happiest season. Sorry, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Happiest season. I felt like even in that, the issues are the same, but again, in some way, it was just done well. The story itself was cute. The writing kind of flourished. It came to the fore. I really like that, the way it was done.
I mean, my only thing is, my one liner for myself these days is that use all the tropes. Use all the tropes that heteros have used forever.
Yeah.
And create fantastic, like, because we deserve those cheesy ass stuff as well. We deserve our stupid love triangles as well, dude. Like, we deserve crazy dramas and rom-coms.
Well,
So use the
look at
goddamn dramas, but use it creatively.
And so here's the thing, you know, Lifetime gets just for users who don't know about movies and like Christmas movies. To their credit, they have been doing that for the past 1 or 2 years, where they build these Christmas rom-coms with queer characters and stuff.
Wow.
And it is so cheesy, but I'm so for it, because it's like all the shit that we've seen and, you know, said, oh, that Matthew McConaughey rom-com, that Reese Witherspoon rom-com, that sucks. They basically are remaking those that skeleton with a gay story, and I'm like, I'm totally for it. We need those. We want
Take all my money.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the gay horror, and gay horror is becoming a genre now. Like, you know, gay horror films. Shretra, you might know this. What's the film where he's in an isolated cabin and he keeps seeing his boyfriend? Do you know what I'm talking about? He keeps seeing his boyfriend everywhere, but his boyfriend's not actually there. Okay, fuck it. Wow, it was such a
Wow.
good
Now
movie.
you are
Also, it
so
wasn't
mean.
even
Now
an
I'm going to keep thinking about
oh
this
shit,
all
shit,
night.
shit. And it's not an English film. It's not an English film. I think it's like a very like Finnish or some rant. Oh my god, have you all seen Grants? Grans. Okay,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
oh my god, that is one of the most gender defying films. Although this week gender bending is a very problematic term, thanks to all that went down online, if you all know what I'm talking about.
No, we
uh,
Oh
don't.
yes. Oh
So
my God.
tell me
Yes.
more. Tell me.
this
What?
Vice India article.
Oh,
uh,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah. But Grants is actually the first film where I was like, they talk about genitals, and it's the protagonist is like, just watch it. I don't want to like ruin it.
There is another film which the premise of which was I think it's called XXY.
Okay.
It's about this guy. I mean, this person who's born male and discovers that every time they have sex, they change gender.
Oh my
Wow.
god. Yeah.
So there is, and then this person discovers another person exactly like that, and then they find love, because so then there are segments where
Why do I feel like you're talking? It might be the same movie because that's what this Grants movie I'm talking about. That's the same thing, but just it might be the same film that we are talking about.
really. So
Yeah.
is there a segment where they are screwing each other and they keep
She
changing?
okay. Sorry, I hate to say this, but does she look like an ogre? Like she's
No. You are,
okay,
I know what
okay,
you're talking about. I know which
okay,
one you're talking about. This is
okay,
different.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah, so it was such an interesting narrative, because I've often felt that, the world would be a better place if that would happen to everyone, if everyone had to face what it's like being every single gender, not even just male or female, like be empathetic. So yeah, like that's all I wanted to talk about, just that film,
I
because
feel again we are on the cusp of a great moment in television history,
I
at least,
agree.
where because I feel ever since Breaking Bad, it's been the ever since HBO actually, like
HBO.
Sopranos, and HBO's been around since the
The
90s. But I
Wire.
feel like
I mean,
yeah, The Wire, Sopranos, all of
like
them.
the gay representation in
Sure,
Wire.
Angels in America. Hi.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's my favorite play
In
of
fact,
all
last
time.
week I recommended Sopranos, and I don't know if anyone's gonna watch it, so I don't care if it's a spoiler. But like, suddenly there's in the final season, there's this whole angle about an Italian mob captain who's actually gay, and everybody
Yeah.
finds out, and I'm like, wow, HBO is no holds barred. Like they'll go there.
I give it to HBO for changing the landscape of
Yeah.
representation.
But I just feel like as the internet has become like a public, like we all have access today. I don't know if we were still without the internet. I don't know when I would
I
have come
agree.
across I May Destroy You or Kab Milega,
Yeah.
Kidhar Milega VCD DVD pe.
Yeah.
I don't know when I would have come across like High Maintenance, these kind of
Mhm.
shows. So I really feel that because now writers are kind of exposed to the kind of stuff that is there in the world of content, they are getting inspired in ways to write things that are now more
Completely.
forward, more
Yeah.
like, even if it's done terribly in so many
At
ways,
least, I mean, as long as it's a conversation that we are starting, I'm okay with it.
Exactly.
Because we can talk about finessing, we can talk about the craft, but if the conversation doesn't start, where do we even go?
Yeah. Because
Totally.
that's the thing, right? Which was our earlier conversation. So many times I see these things and I'm like, I hate this show, but you know what? I'm glad they're at least like 4 more shots would be an example of that. I saw literally 2 episodes. There was one gay character in it, and I was like, you know what? Okay, at least, but this show is fucking awful, So just the effort, applaud the effort, basically. That's it.
They tried to make it wholesome in the second season. Like I really found it. Like I accept the toxicity of Bani and
Yeah.
Lisa Ray's characters. I'm just like
Yeah.
when they danced on Rang Rang Me together, and I'm like my gay heart is just like dead right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, my standards for consuming can be kind of low at times.
Yeah.
But just to kind of let's talk about examples in the last year that we can pick out as iconic sort of, path breaking examples for us? Or not even last year. I think just in our lives, queer representation, one or two examples for each of us.
I want to go
Yeah,
first.
please. Yeah.
And because it's not a TV. Honestly, can I tell you something? I'm not the biggest Pose fan, huh? I love Pose. I love Pose in a lot of ways, but is it the best show I've ever watched? I don't think
It's
so.
not, yeah.
But there was one moment in season 2, and again, spoiler alert, but I can't talk about this. The ballroom funeral. You know what I'm talking about? That moment in Pose, very rarely now do I happen to watch a show or a movie in which I arrive and I'm like, what is this I'm feeling? Why? Because Schitt's Creek was one of those examples.
Yeah.
Like, what is this confusion I'm feeling? Why am I feeling so fuzzy and warm? And I love shows that make me question something I'm
Yeah.
watching. Like, why am I about to cry? What is this? What the fuck? Why is this happening to me? And that scene in Pose, I don't want to call it the funeral scene, but you know what I'm talking about. Where
It's
she,
celebration.
as a goodbye, a celebration. I won't say ghost, but again, she's there singing with everyone. I was, my shirt was wet. I'm not kidding. I don't remember the last time I cried that much. And the fact that it was for a character who's a side character in a lot of ways.
Character, yeah.
Who I did not care much about. I was just like already starting to feel like, okay, the show is getting a little too melodramatic and all of that. But that one moment made the entire season fantastic for me. Like I instantly forgave every mistake they made in the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That moment was so pivotal and it came from a place of such, like, again, deep, bittersweet celebration. I just fucking loved it so much. So that was in the last 1 year, if I have to say. I have to watch the new season now, but in the last 1 year I felt like that episode really stuck out for me. And of course, Schitt's Creek.
So, Sulagna?
For me, I think, again, not in the past 1 year only, but I think one of my comfort watches is the show called One Day at a Time. It has the most wholesome queer representation, young adult queer representation, actually. I mean, the way when Elena finally does come out, firstly to her mom, who thinks like her mom's like, yeah, I'm okay with it, but am I though? And she kind of goes and talks to this person at the gay bar, and he's like, my daughter just came out to me and I'm okay with it, but I'm not 100% okay with it. And the guy asks her, how long has it been since she came out to you? And she's like, 24 hours. And she's like, oh my God, it's 24 hours and you're not running a pride parade? What the fuck? So, the way they've dealt with conversations about coming out, about being okay with the humane side of acceptance altogether, that it's not always black or white. The way Elena's super Catholic grandmother is like, okay, I'm not okay with it, but God said that he's made everybody in his image, and if God is okay with it, then who the fuck am I to kind of question it? So yeah, I'm okay with it. And the mother is like, you just accepted it in like 5 minutes for the hair, and these are like supremely they're like, it's an amazing show. It's so wholesome.
Where can I watch this?
It's on Netflix.
Netflix.
So they cancelled it after, I think, 4 seasons, I guess.
Yeah.
Then it was
Like
really hard
all
to see.
good shows.
Exactly.
Rita
So I
Moreno,
think-
right? Rita Moreno.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It is so wholesome. Every single episode, you can just watch it. And obviously, Schitt's Creek is like, it goes without saying. Like,
Yeah.
of course.
Well, Schitt's Creek, yes, but one of the most one of those pop culture moments, I would say, that really has stayed with me till date is this film called Weekend, and I've spoken about this before. And the reason, I'll tell you why, because and this film came out like in 2011, 2012-ish, that era. Whenever there was this question of queer stories, either it was the spectrum of lurid color, which is like musical, like, just like Technicolor, the Moulin Rouge sort of, filter, or it was the Ammonite filter, which is just dreary, drab, sad. This was so bare and stripped down to just emotion and conversation and realism that I felt like I was in bed with these characters. I was right there. It's about these two characters who happen to have a one-night stand, and then they decide to just keep going, and they meet again, chat, they discover each other, they discover each other's insecurities. And for me, that was the first time I was seeing questions about insecurity and coming out, and in such a real, hard hitting, but an intimate way. And I had never seen that before. And for me, that was the start of like, I used to not expect that. I used to feel like, no, we are not supposed to get that. We don't deserve that. And after that, I was like, if it can happen like this, why can't I demand more? Why can't I expect more? And that was the start of it.
I'm so glad. This is this why can't we demand more? Why can't this is the number fucking Schitt's Creek has played on me, because sometimes I'm like so confused. In some way, I'm like, oh, you know what? I can have a sweet outcome to this gay life. There can be some sort of respite in all this Grindr and Tinder and whatever this is. But wow, sometimes I hate it. That why did Schitt's Creek do this to me? Like, what the fuck? Why did they have to do this? But I'm glad they did.
It brought back the old school romance in the new age world, almost.
Beautifully. Yeah.
I have one last question for both of you. What is the next pit stop that you would want overall? Like, what's your wish list in terms of queer representation pit stop? Like, make it very, very, very specific. Like I'll give you an example. I want to see a flaming queer person who's the main character in a superhero tentpole. Like the main character, not a side character, the main character. And that moment doesn't count. I want to talk about like someone who's trans, like who's like non-binary, almost like that. So yeah, that's what I want. That's what I'm wishing for.
For me, I think I really, really, really want a story about an asexual person trying to find love. Because the concept of sex in sexuality is hyped so much that especially like some of my closest friends are ace, right? And they are like, we have never seen ourselves ever. Like, you just feel that, oh my god, you are attracted to someone, obviously you want to sleep with them. So like, my friend the other day was legit telling me the same thing, and I was like, hey, that's actually something very important. So I think that is something I would really, really, because I think there's so much layer to a story like that. So that would be really interesting to kind of differentiate romance and.
Yeah, I'm so with you on this, because honestly, I'm on Twitch, the app Twitch, which is for gamers, and a lot of gamers happen to be on Twitch. And honestly, one of the most celebrated asexual characters is, if you all ever know the video game Hitman, which was later on a movie also, Blood Money. Yeah, he's a very celebrated asexual protagonist, but it's done horribly. Like in that world, basically, all these hot women, like James Bond levels of hot women, make advances at him, and he just keeps turning them down. That's it. And I was in a Twitch conversation recently where they were talking about, how in Hitman they've done it so well, and I was like, oh my god, that's the
it's
worst.
not.
It's the worst fucking represent. It's like they are like, he's bald and they're rubbing their hands all over his head, and he's just sitting with a straight face, and I'm like, that is so bad. Because honestly, Sunetro, our conversation with Madhuri, it really changed so much of me and the way I see ace people, and I was just like, wow, I did not know so much. So I really hope that
people just kind of confuse asexuality to being completely sexless,
and
inert.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sorry, Farhad, did you answer?
No, honestly, I'm going to take, I want a small step. The small step being, which is something we already discussed, I just want a simple story where a character's queerness does not lead the narrative in any direction or any way.
Yeah.
It's just a part of who they are. And whatever happens to that character in that film or TV show or ad or whatever it is, happens to them, and not because they were queer. That's one small step for
queer kind.
For queer kind. Like, I just once want to see that, and as in this side of the globe, basically. I'm not saying that it's never been done, but I just wish, like, That kind of, and again, I don't want to make this too much Schitt's Creek, but if you've seen the after Schitt's Creek, the documentary, where he talks about, for him, it finally sunk in when he was on Wall Street and he saw a giant billboard of two men kissing. That's when he knew he had done something that might be a change. Of course, there's a lot of other things that he talks about. The mothers who've written letters to him about their sons coming out to them after watching Schitt's Creek and all those things. Yeah, sure. But that moment for him where he could stand under a billboard and just like be like, okay, I might have done something with this show, is a measure of how much he was trying to not intentionally do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it was a surprise to him, even that, holy shit, I might have done something here. And I found that absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful. Absolutely. I agree. Totally agree. Well,
I guess that's it.
That's it. We'll take a quick break and we'll move on to our final recommendation section. We'll be right back. And we're back with our recommendations for the week in our last segment, which is small talk. So, Sulagna, our guest for today, why don't you go first? What would you recommend for our audiences?
What are you watching? What are you reading? What
anything. It can be,
Does it have to be queer specific?
It can be an app. It can be anything.
It can be anything. Anything.
We even recorded. Once I recommended some food thing. Sunetro.
What did I recommend? I recommended a combination that, how. So you're Bengali. Finally, someone who gets it. Chutney and papod.
Oh my
like
God.
bhaja papod. No one knows about this except for Bengalis, and I was like,
why must you make me crave? It's raining outside right now.
Yeah.
So basically, Sulagna, any recommendation is welcome. Something you want
can
people to try.
Can I recommend a fantastic creator?
Do it.
Yes, please.
So I got these earrings. My this amazing artist on Instagram called Blessy Rebello has these incredible pride merchandise, and I just believe it's better to give money to actual queer creators and actual gay people instead of supremely capitalistic people. So Blessy Rebello makes these really amazing clay earrings and clay merchandise. So she is somebody, because these look really, really cute. Oh my God. So yeah.
All right, Farhad.
Wow. I think I've spoken about it, but I don't know if I ever recommended it. So if I have, I'm just going to do it again. Golden Girls. I sometimes I'm like, man, that show has been my dal khichdi for years now. It never gets boring. It's always sassy. It's always gay. It's always everything. And it was done in a time where none of these things could be spoken about on TV, like a gay character and a gay daughter. But this show
also being sex positive at that age.
Everything. Sometimes I just even watch Blanche compilation videos on YouTube, or I watch Dorothy, when I'm quickly eating between, I have a Google Meet, let me quickly eat, what do I watch? And I'll watch and I'm like, dude, it's a gift that keeps on giving, the TV show. And in some ways I feel like if studying gay pop culture history is a syllabus, I feel like this is one of the earlier chapters.
This should be the cover.
Golden Girls is something you should get, because everything that we watch now, sure, it's great, but Golden Girls started
it.
I feel in so many ways.
Yeah, amazing. My recommendation would be something that I mentioned today, and it's just this film that really, really moves me, and I'm sure anyone who watches it, I haven't met a single person who said, mujhe acha nahi laga. It is Weekend by Andrew Haig. Please watch it. It's just such a beautiful, nuanced love story. So real, so hard-hitting. So yeah, Weekend. Yeah.
Don't listen to the album by Weekend, because that's totally opposite from the film.
This is the film Weekend. Yeah,
I'm glad you because it's one of those movies. I watched it then. I absolutely loved it, and somehow because we consume so much shit now, you forget that and I also hate that we live in an age where we don't repeat watch things. Sometimes I feel like, because now there's chalo, everything's new. But I should
mass
rewatch
production,
the Weekend.
mass consumption, basically.
Yeah, man. Okay. I guess that's it for this week. Thank you so much, Sulagna, for joining us.
Thank you
This
so
was
much. It was so much
amazing.
fun.
Yeah.
What a lovely conversation.
We are lovely gays. What can I say?
Oh my God. Happy Pride, guys.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Thank you so much, Sunetro. This was another
Amazing
popping episode.
Yeah.
We'll whoever's listening, we'll see you next week.
Yep.
We'll literally see you. First we used to listen, and now we just literally see you. So by the way, I love the amount of hey Farhad, you look very cute on YouTube. Huh? It's kind of wow video, wow, amazing. I love it. So yeah, thanks. Keep that coming, guys. It works wonders for me. Okay.
All right.